والصلاة والسلام على محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين. All right, inshallah, we'll get started, and then there are some more people that have registered, so inshallah, they'll be trickling in. First off, my name is John Ropolos. I am the founder of Edib Academy, and we'll speak a little bit about exactly what we do in just a moment. This workshop session is on philosophy and why Muslims, especially high schoolers and middle schoolers, should study a little bit of philosophy, at least, before they go off to college. And then not only obviously for the secondary schools, but also for even younger children. There's different methods that we can take from philosophy and apply. So Bismillah, let's get going. Let me just share presentation. Can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes,
Hello? Can anyone see it?
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you to all the mothers for coming on Mother's Day. I know it's probably not the most convenient for you. Bismillah. Um, let's get started. So what our agenda for today. So we'll go through some introductions about myself and then Edib Academy. And my wife should be joining us shortly. We have a 1-year-old, so she keeps waking up, so she may be in and out. And then we'll ask an opening question, which is very normal in most of our courses. We always begin with an opening question. And then we're going to look at some definitions of philosophy, because many people define philosophy very different. And so, what are we talking about when we say that Muslim students need to study philosophy? And then we're going to talk about the Socratic method. But really, you can break this talk into two parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about how philosophy has impacted our world and why it's important to study. And in the second part, I'm going to go over the Socratic method, which you as parents or even educators can use yourselves while teaching. So, Bismillah. Just real quick, my name is John Ropolos, founder of Edib Academy. I'm a graduate from St. John's College and Zaytuna College. Did my BA and MA at Zaytuna. Currently doing my PhD. I'm actually in Germany right now with my wife and daughter, doing a PhD on Islamic theology and philosophy in the post-classical tradition. And my wife and I started Edib Academy several years ago. We've been tutoring for close to 10 years, I believe, as well as teaching. And we wanted to start something a little more professional with group courses that we could do every year. Same group courses. So our mission statement, Edib Academy provides a holistic education that blends our inherited Islamic tradition with the classical Western liberal arts. So grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the trivium, etc. Our aim is to nurture students into well-rounded individuals who possess the intellectual and moral virtues and to instill in them a reverence for the divine. And so many of our courses, for instance, our seminars, combine Western texts with Islamic texts. So we'll read the Iliad 1 week, and then we'll read maybe Shahnameh from the Persian tradition, the other week. So we combine them. So first, let's start. What is philosophy? So I actually don't want to be the only one speaking. So I want to ask you all, anyone who would like to volunteer, what is philosophy? What's a definition for it? What do you think it is? If anyone wants to volunteer, don't be afraid. I'm not gonna criticize your definition. Or even what have you heard about philosophy? chat. A study of what humans believe. Okay. MashaAllah. Good. Anyone else? There's no worry. There's no right or wrong answer. You'll find that philosophers spend most of their time debating about what philosophy is anyway. So no one really has a set, firm definition, I think. Some people will say the study of the search for wisdom, pursuit of wisdom, things like that. It's a way to describe an ethical and often legal framework for a society. Hard to define. Okay, inshallah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely that is an aspect of it. Anyone else? All right, so let's look at some potential definitions, right? First, just the etymological definition of philosophy. So it comes from it's a combination of two Greek words, philos, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. So philosophia is literally the love or pursuit of wisdom. This is the etymological definition. It's an ancient Greek word, comes from, ancient ancient Greeks, obviously Athens primarily, a mix of ontology, epistemology, and cosmology. Yes, definitely, for sure. Yeah, we're gonna get at that, inshallah. It was developed at least in the West, right, in terms of the word and the study that belongs to that word, really with ancient Athens, a little bit earlier in the city of Miletus, which is actually in modern day Turkey on the coast. It's not on the coast anymore because the land mass has changed a bit. But this is the etymological definition. So, love or pursuit of wisdom. Now, another definition that we can say, I think, represents the idea of philosophy in the ancient, medieval, and really maybe even up to the 1800s. The discipline of dealing in all rational speculation or contemplation, right? So it's a discipline, it's a science that has to do with anything that rational speculation or contemplation applies to, right? So that can be many different things we'll see in just a moment. A critical study of the basic principles and concepts of a particular branch of knowledge. So this is like when we say the philosophy of science, right? Like the philosophy of physics, the philosophy of biology, the philosophy of anthropology, right? This definition that's often used for philosophy. Then we have a system of principles for guidance in practical affairs. So when someone says, well, this is my personal philosophy, what do they mean? They mean these are the principles that I live my everyday life by, right? But this definition here, I like this definition a lot. And I think it really gets at the heart of what philosophy is. It's an open-ended inquiry into truth. So, as in, we're seeking truth and we're willing to investigate anything, as in, we're willing to investigate why is it that when I utter words, you understand them, right? We speak the same language, but how is it that I use these certain sounds and these sounds convey meaning to you? That's a philosophical question. Why is it that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west? It's actually a philosophical question if we really get to the heart of it, and we'll see what I mean by that in just a minute, and so on and so forth. So pretty much anything in the search for truth, right? This can be considered philosophy, and this is opposed to another word that it comes from Sophia as well, sophistry. So sophistry is often the evil twin of philosophy. So people using fallacious reasoning, incorrect reasoning in order to really win arguments, right? This is often what sophistry is defined as. And we actually, in our tradition, if you're looking at Shahad al-Qad Nasafiya or something like that, they will actually distinguish between Ahl Sunnah, for instance, and or Muslims, and the sophists. They actually use the Greek word sophisteia, uh, and and so it's very interesting how that term actually got used in our tradition as well. So, but the two definitions I want to focus on is really the second one, the discipline of dealing in all rational speculation or contemplation, and the last one, an open-ended inquiry into truth. So this, so now I want to talk about how philosophy is really ingrained in all over our world, absolutely everywhere. Um, and not only that, but the our modern world has been made by philosophy, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But if we see here, this is a picture. It's called the School of Athens. It's done by the famous painter Raphael, like the Ninja Turtle. And it's actually in the Papal Palace in Vatican City. Okay. So why am I showing you a picture of something at the Vatican? This here is Aristotle, here's Plato, right? And we could go on. There's a bunch of different philosophers here. This is according to Western European standards, right? The Vatican City is one of the holiest cities, right? And this is in the Pope's palace, a picture of a bunch of philosophers, a painting of a bunch of philosophers. So I think this represents actually that at a certain point in time, especially in the West, philosophy and not only theology, but pretty much every discipline was really integrated, held together. And this kind of speaks for itself, I think. But really interesting here, this person right here with the hand on his heart is the only Muslim to make an appearance on this. His name is Ibn Rushd or Averroes in the West. And they got, the hand on the heart and the turban, but they missed the beard, للأسف, unfortunately. Um, minor mistake there. Anyway, but this picture, I think, is going to represent for us that in the West, and I take it that even if I think most of us are coming from Western countries, we either reside there, live there, we grew up there. But even if we didn't, even if we aren't, even if we're in a Muslim country or even an East Asian country or what have you, the Western world has basically spread throughout the globe. And it is really affected the way that most societies live. And so if I take that as kind of my principle here, that we are affected by the Western world, then it's important for us to understand how the Western world was very much fused with philosophy and how the changes that occurred in the history of philosophy changed not only Western civilization, but then that change affected the rest of the world in various ways. And so we'll get at that in just a moment. So, in the ancient and medieval worlds, philosophy actually was a term that you could really use it to describe most disciplines, most sciences, because they believed that philosophy was the study of what is or what exists, or another way of saying it, the study of being. Okay, being as in to be. And it was generally divided into two types, okay, practical and theoretical. Practical just means that we as humans can change these aspects. So you have ethics. Ethics is my dealing with me as an individual, my morality, how whether I'm a good person, a bad person, right? This is ethics. And so philosophy at the very basic practical level deals with the individual and how they should act, how they should be, they should think even. The next in line on the practical side is home economics. This is basically a combination of homemaking and, what do they call it? But basically managing a household. So it includes relationship between husband and wife, relationship between the parents and children, how much income you take in versus your expenditure, right? So basically how to manage the home. And then you have politics, which takes into consideration the city, as well as, if we move into larger states, kingdoms, what have you. Uh, that's the final branch of practical philosophy. And so on the practical side, you have things that cover from the individual to the immediate family to then the entire society at large. And there are other sciences that we can include in this. Ibn Khaldun, the famous Muslim, um, historian, you might say that his Ilm al-Umran, or the science of society, for lack of a better translation, would belong on this side. Now, on the right-hand side, we have theoretical philosophy. Okay, so theoretical, basically, we're studying those things that we can't change. As in the natural world, there it is. We're just going to look at it and study it. And so we have, on the one hand, natural sciences. Now, this can be biology, botany, what else? Physics, um, mineralogy, alchemy, what then becomes chemistry. All of these fell under natural sciences. And then we have mathematics. So you have, arithmetic, geometry, algebra, astronomy, so on and so forth. These were all considered philosophy, actually. And then finally, metaphysics, which is divided generally into two. Ontology, which is, how do you define metaphysics? Think of it as the study of the most general aspects of existence. So the fact that something is one versus multiple, the fact that this is the opposite of that, the fact that this was caused by this, this is a cause, this is an effect, so on and so forth. Um, so ontology will cover these basic aspects, whereas the other branch, theology, would be the study of God. And obviously, in the West, they had their own creedal theology, dogmatic theology that was included. But this division is as early as the ancient Greeks. So you're looking at 300 BCE, right? This is 2,300 years ago. Now, this division of the philosophical sciences, you'll find it in the Muslim world as well, the exact division. There's some arguments here and there about various sciences, where should they be, et cetera, et cetera. But you will find this in the Western world as well as in the Islamic world. Now, what happens in the West? So there is, you could say, a revolution that takes place, and it starts in various places on this tree. But if we were to really kind of pinpoint one of the major ones, and I'm sure you all know this, but in the natural sciences, under physics, there was a revolution in physics. So this is Galileo and these Renaissance thinkers decided that Aristotelian physics was incorrect, and then they started developing their own physics. And this changes over time until we get all the way to quantum mechanics today and the theory of relativity with Einstein. So that's one of the first major revolutions. Okay. Now, to say something about that, Einstein, when he's writing his books on general relativity, he thinks he's doing philosophy still, right? That idea, that mentality had still maintained itself really up until the 1920s, 30s. It's really only it's kind of debatable, but around that time, you could say, where this idea that philosophy is some separate discipline, and that's because of some history with some of the modern philosophical schools, where philosophy gets its own kind of corner, right? Over here, mathematics, that's not philosophy, that's over here. Physics, that's not philosophy, that's over here, right? Um, you also get a revolution in mathematics that takes place. Now, key things here that I think we can all recognize are the revolutions that take place in politics. Um, I think a majority of us, I want to say, okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are living in some type of democratic republic, parliamentarian monarchy, maybe, right? Most of the, I think all of the states that as the nations that we're in probably have constitutions. This is a direct result of the democratic, quote unquote, democratic enlightenment that takes place in Western Europe. And now that revolution in political philosophy, political theory, has shaped the entire globe. I mean, even if you consider some place, for instance, just because we're in the West, opposite China in the East, Far East. I mean, what was their system built off of? It was built off principally communist, Marxism, and then communism. Marx is a German philosopher. I'm in Germany. We're not too far from where Marx lived. So it's we can see that this has very much affected the entire world that we're in. You can't escape it. And also with ethics, there was a huge change. Some of you may know about utilitarian ethics, or even if we just look at what's popular today in America, do what makes you happy, what makes you feel good. This is a ethical revolution that really, I mean, it has a lot of strands. So, if I were speaking at a philosophy department, they would take me to task on some of these things, but I'm trying to simplify it. I don't want to go into all these little windy roads. But let's just say there's a huge revolution that takes place in the Romantic area. We can at least start there. So you're looking at end of the 1700s, early 1800s in Western Europe. And there are things that occur before that. I mean, obviously, with Hume and Kant and these guys. But this idea that hey, do what you want, um, uh, really find your passion and be you, and all of these ideas actually come from philosophers in Western Europe, many of them. Now, and of course, in metaphysics, specifically theology, I think we may all realize that most of, especially, I mean, it's hard to say about America at this point, but Western Europe, for instance, is principally there's a separation of church and state, right? And technically, on the books in America, that's the case. But this idea of secularism, that religion is on one side and the state is on the other. This was a Western European development. And they've now taken that and applied it to the Muslim world. So you're talking colonialism and post-colonialism. A lot of Muslim nations have a type of separation that really isn't natural or even fitting for Muslim countries, even historically fitting. So let me just go to the next slide. Some isms. So just a few more examples here. And basically what I'm trying to get across is that our world is very much inundated, it's submerged in philosophy. And if our students, if our children don't have any idea about any of these things, we're in trouble. Because if they're going to go to university, right, and let's say, mashallah, they've grown up, they've been in a nice Muslim community, but then they're let off into a university, what have you, and all of a sudden they're being questioned about things, not only their faith, but just simple things that we believe. What are they going to say, right? What's their defense, right? And it's really important, I think, to kind of give a shield and a sword and some armor to our students, to our children, so that when they go out into the world, they're able to stand on their own 2 feet. Okay, and so I'm going to go over just there's a list of just some examples and how they may or may not be contradictory. The principles of them be contradictory with Islamic, you could say the Islamic culture, Islamic society, Islamic principles. Um, and then we'll go through these quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on them. So we have secularism. I just spoke about it. Separation of religion and state. Okay, what about Islamic law, which was very much a part of state apparati, right, in the Muslim world for 30 1,300 years. It still is in many countries, but a lot of it has been sidelined. Then we have liberalism. So this isn't like the Democratic Party is liberal, right? This is the much larger classical liberalism. So individual autonomy over divine guidance, as in you can decide what is right and what is wrong. You have the ability yourself to do that, right? Well, what about Allah and His Messenger? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Isn't that where we get our morals, for instance? So promotes a type of moral relativism where you believe that, I believe this. Okay, that's fine. Who's to say which is right, right? That's just what you believe. That's your culture, right? A lot of people have turned Islam into a culture. Anyway, what is truth, right? We're seeking truth, right? Marxism, communism, this is obviously a very simplified version, but materialistic, atheistic worldview, dialectical materialism, that really history and humanity is changed by these material conditions. Where's the law in history, right? I mean, this is a huge issue. And there are other aspects to it, but nationalism, and this has been very damaging for the Muslim world. Imagine, some of the empires, like the Ottoman Empire, for instance, or even the Mughal Empire, which had many different ethnicities under them, many different national identities. But now, especially, I mean, even the Muslim world, right? It's, well, no, we speak this language, you speak that language. We should have our own country. You should have your own country. It's caused a lot of problems. I mean, alhamdulillah, I converted to Islam, but my grandfather was born in the Ottoman Empire. He's a Greek, and he left when the Ottomans entered World War I. So he was still alive he was born in a society that actually had many different ethnicities living under it, and it wasn't problematic. It started to become problematic, right, at this time, actually, because of nationalism. Um, I don't want to go into that too much, but we're no longer uniting simply under the banner of Islam, but that I'm, Arab, I'm this, I'm that, what have you, I'm Greek, I'm, Japanese, right? It's all based on nationality or ethnicity. Capitalism, consumerism, we deal with this every day, whether we're shopping on Amazon or what have you, right? Where especially if we grow up in the West, excessive materialism. You can literally, if you want something right now, you can order it online, no problem, right? And there are, of course, many of these have good aspects, bad aspects. Nothing's pure evil, but it's good to know some of these things. Postmodernism. Now, it's really hard to say much about postmodernism because it doesn't really have a definition. Okay, and it covers a lot of different modern philosophies that are out there that are coming out of France, Germany, kind of all over the place. But there are some aspects of the rejection of universal truths. So that something is right, something is wrong. This would be a rejection of it by postmodernists. Skepticism towards meta narratives. A meta narrative is a narrative that explain a story that explains everything. So the fact that Allah created the universe and told us that we're here in this world to worship Him. Do you think that's a narrative? That's a meta narrative that explains why we're here and what we're doing. They would be very wary of that, right? So all of these things, I promise you, if your kids go to university, at least in some of their, depending on what field they go into, obviously, but at least in some of their general education, general ed courses, or if they go into the humanities, for sure they're going to be introduced to all of these. But they'll be interacting with these at some level in their college courses. But also, if you look at them, they're already interacting with these ideas in society itself. So what do we do, right? What's the solution? My argument is that we teach them a little bit about these things and we help them distinguish early on that these are some various ideologies, philosophies. These are their beliefs about the world and how humans should be, etc., etc. Here's kind of the Islamic perspective on these things. And let's discuss, and this is the key part, let's discuss why the Islamic principles that we have are right and these are wrong. Or maybe that we can agree on some things but disagree on others, right? And that is very, I think, a key aspect of this. So just this is the conclusion, say, of the first part, and then we'll go into the second part on Socratic method. But again, I think it's very important for young Muslims, young adults, right? Technically, right, 150 years ago, they'd be we just call them adults. But it's important for them to actually learn some aspects of philosophy so that they're prepared when they go off, into once they leave the home front, so to speak. Before we go into the second portion, are there any questions about anything I said? And again, I just summarized, you know, 2,000 years of history in 30 minutes. So it's not it's not the most it's not going to cover every detail. But try to present it simply as possible. And if you have a question, you can either just you know ask it or type it, whatever you feel comfortable with. Questions, all right. Alhamdulillah. It's always, a little nervous when there's no questions like today. What did I say? Mashallah. All right. Before we go into the second part, which is on Socratic, the Socratic method, because there are aspects of philosophy, right? Here, these are schools of philosophy or ideas that were developed in philosophy that we kind of, well, let's make sure that we understand these, understand how they're affecting our world, just to be a knowledgeable human being about what's going on just day to day. It's important to know some of these things. But what can we, as parents, as educators, no matter what age our child is, what can we take from philosophy that's neutral, right? It doesn't have necessarily too many, you could say, kind of doesn't have any set values that we have to hold on to, except for a couple. What can we take from philosophy and then adopt in our teaching, in our even our conversations with our children? And my argument is that it should be the Socratic method. And the Socratic method, if you're familiar, you may have heard of it before. They call it Socratic inquiry, Socratic dialogue, many different um, uh, just many different names. But I'm going to give you my experience and from what I've studied, what it is. So in that picture, there is a picture. There is actually Socrates. Of course, he's got to be there. He's kind of heralded as he's not the start of philosophy, but he's definitely one of the most popular philosophers. And here he's talking to Alcibiades. Alcibiades was an Athenian politician who had a lot of power in Athens. This is when Athens was this very powerful empire, and Socrates tried to convince him to study philosophy and leave off his desires for empire and all these things, uh, and in the hopes, bringing him to philosophy so that he would help the Athenian state and guide it. Unfortunately, Socrates didn't triumph with that. Alcibiades is kind of like that rebellious teen that you could never really get to sit down in class to listen. And when you try to talk to him outside of class, he ends up just, walking off, right? So, and he really ruined the Athenian state. But anyway, it's a fun little Wikipedia search if you have the time. So, what is the Socratic method? Basically, it's dialogue, a conversation. But, and I want to distinguish between two types of questions. two types of questioning. There's liberal, so as in generous or charitable questioning, and then there's miserly questioning. So a miserly questioning would be like miserly, right? Greedy questioning, where or and even a type of impoverished question because you're not willing. The questioning doesn't give much, right? So you ask a simple question and you expect a certain answer, right? If you've, I mean, many all of us have been in classrooms before where the teacher is asking a leading question in order to receive a certain answer, right? To make sure you're paying attention most of the time, right? That's a miserly question. Okay, and I'm going to give an example of a charitable or liberal question in a moment. Another aspect of this Socratic method dialogue is texts are gateways, they're not final destinations. As in, we're not only trying to understand what the text is saying, we're trying to use the text to go farther than that, to be, you could say, contemplative about ourselves, about our society, about the world we live in. So, for instance, if I'm reading a book, say, I don't know, the Iliad, which is about a warrior, Achilles, fighting to conquer Troy, and he gets upset because the king takes away, um, you know, some of the nice things he got in the war, and so he cries on the beach about it. Anyway, the opening of the book begins with sing about the rage of Achilles. So the anger of Achilles. Now we could just talk about Achilles and what happens in the Iliad. Okay, this happens in this chapter, and that. Or we're human beings. We experience rage. We experience these things. Sometimes societies and even entire nations are attacked or destroyed by rage, right? All of a sudden, this book that we're reading no longer is just about a book, it's about the world we live in, or it's about ourselves. And so you use the text as a means to get to these different aspects of our lives. So if we're in a dialogue and I'm asking the students some questions or they're giving some answers, we'll take their answers and we'll examine them. And we'll say, well, you said this. What do you mean by that? Can you clarify that? Did you mean something like this or did you mean something like this? We'll give them options. We'll take maybe a simple answer that they give at the beginning and then we'll expand it. And we'll show them that maybe that thought that they had, it was a kernel that could fully blossom into all of these different ideas. And then we want them to clarify those ideas. Okay, and I'll go over an example of this in just a moment. Next aspect, aporia. This is a Greek word. It just means you're stunned and puzzled. Someone's asked a question, or you've said something, and then someone says, "Well, but that would mean this," and all of a sudden you're struck, and you're thinking, "Well, what just happened?" You're stunned. Now, if you've ever been in a classroom, right? You have a student raising their hand and they're answering the questions, they're getting it right, and they're getting it right. And, it's emotion, right? It's this habit that they've developed. But what happens when a question is asked and they have to actually think about it? I mean, deeply think about it. That's aporia. That's when they're stunned because they're bewildered. Like, what does that mean? How do I uncover that? And unfortunately, a lot of schools, the educational system kind of stifles this type of learning because we're all trying to pass the SATs, right, and get to college. Um, then we have combining and separating. You said this over here. You said that over here. Let's take these together, right? And this is a new idea. Or you said that these two things are the same. Are they really? Let's separate them. Couldn't it be this and this? These are new avenues that we can pursue, right, in the dialogue, in the discourse. Uh, Finally, through these kind of methods, these principles, we get to not simple answers, but subtle and sophisticated answers that maybe someone believed, maybe a student or child believed something at the beginning of the conversation, and now they don't believe it, or they still believe it, but only in this case and not in this case. And maybe in XYZ, but not, in these other events, right? So they've now really thought about what they first believed and they've developed it. Okay. So let's do a little exercise. Okay, we got 15 minutes, alhamdulillah. So this is a poem by Robert Frost. Okay, and I'm trying to stay on time here. I want to give you guys, if you have questions later on. This is a very small poem, right? Nothing gold can stay. I'll read it. Um, Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Now, poems are great because they're just compact with meaning. But if you all seen the movie or read the book by Dickens, The Christmas Carol, there's a famous character called Ebenezer Scrooge. He's very greedy. He doesn't want to give any charity, on Christmas and so forth. And he is a miserly person. So he's a miserly questioner as well. So he asks, what is this poem about? And Miss Keen, Tiny Tim, who's also a character there, um, he says this poem is about how everything changes and nothing remains the same for long, like nature. That's true. That is an aspect of the poem, right? Most classrooms, they would stop at this point, maybe say a few more things about, some of the words and what have you. But I believe that this is a miserly question. This question isn't really going to get us anywhere, right? It's almost like we're we're already expecting the answer when the teacher asks it. Well, then we have someone like Robin Hood. What does Robin Hood do? He steals from the rich and gives to the poor. So we have this rich poem, and he's stealing it, the gold out of it, and giving it to us, the readers. All right, we're impoverished. We need to get something for us. He's a charitable, a liberal questioner, and so he's going to ask many different questions. And so these are the type of questions that in the Socratic method, these are the type of questions uh, you ask. Okay, not the simple, what is this about, right? What does nature mean here? Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Why am I asking what does nature mean here? Because he uses her. Nature's being personified. If it weren't a person, right, you would just say it. Its hardest hue to hold. But he uses her. So what is nature? Is it a person? And her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour, then leaf subsides to leaf. So nature has flowers and leaves. Don't plants, which are a part of nature, have flowers and leaves? How is how does nature have leaves and flowers? Right? Or you might ask, how can green be gold first? It says nature's first green is gold. So the color green is gold first? How does that work? How can something be something else? How can a color be another color? Right? Maybe he's talking about a blossom when you have out of the seed, you have something sprouting. Often that's golden colored, right? And then the green comes, right? But even sometimes before it reaches the surface. If you've ever seen those time lapse videos of a seed growing. Why is it hard for nature to hold a hue, right? To hold a shade of color? Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Why is it hard for nature to hold on to one color? Does the poet mean that, and does the poet mean that nature is holding something literally? Or does it mean like we held the line, as in we maintained something, right? What is the meaning of the holding here? How is nature's early leaf a flower? If we look at a plant, what comes first? It's a leaf. So how is the early leaf of nature a flower if flowers are supposed to come after leaves? How does that work? Right. So one of the definitions of subsides can mean to sink or fall to the bottom. There are others that may work better here, but it's a potential meaning. So if that's the meaning, what is he saying when he says, then leaf subsides, sinks or falls to the bottom to another leaf, right? Is it disappearing and then another leaf appears? How does that work? How is the poet using the conjunction so? So he says, then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. So, as in, with the meaning of just like this, so, so just like this, Eden sank to grief, right? It's a conjunction, but what's the meaning of it there? What type of so is this, right? Is it like progressive, like one occurs after the other? This occurs in the past. Is it causative, right? One causes the other. And eight, does dawn go down? So dawn goes down today. Dawn is rising. It's caused by the rising of the sun, right? How does it go down? Usually dawn rises, right? So what does he mean that it does it rise and then dawn sets? Usually it's the sun that does that. So why is he using dawn, right? Uh, and then finally, what does gold mean here? Nothing gold can stay. If it were just some color that nature has, why so Eden sank to grief? So dawn, which is golden, goes down today, right? Nothing gold can stay. So gold must mean more than just the color of nature, must mean more than the gold of dawn, must mean more, maybe maybe something figurative, right? Something valuable, something priceless, something eternal, apparent and in appearance, but actually not, right? So these are examples of liberal questions. And the question is the most important aspect of the Socratic method. So if I were with a student, um, and it would be fun to actually do this, but I don't know if we have much time, but I would ask these questions. And as the student answers, I would then, okay, examine what you said, what the student said. Uh, okay, you said this. Can we clarify it? Can we separate it? Can we combine? Can we move farther than this? And then now we can go back to that miserly question at the beginning and ask, what is this poem about? Now that's an interesting question. Why? Because we've asked all these other questions that really get us at the text itself. And not only that, we can think about, is this about nature? Technically, we are beings that exist, nature. We have natures. We're in nature in a sense, right? Um, it must mean something about us as well. And he quotes Eden, right? Adam and Eve. That's human beings. It's obviously a clear reference. So then what is this saying about our humanity? Now that question actually means something, and we're not just going to get Tiny Tim's Miskeen answer, right? Um, so this is just a small example of Socratic method. Now, I have a bunch of resources here. I wanted to leave you all with something, um, and it's in reference to the first and second parts of the talk. So the first one, these are books by either Islamic thinkers themselves or I think actually they all were Muslim. I think even Charles Eaton, he became Muslim. But anyway, these kind of cover aspects of modernity as well as its comparison to and difference and similarities with Islam. And also some of these focus on some really specific things like Naqib al-Attas's Islam and Secularism. It's about Islam versus secularism, right? And why they're incompatible. And just an announcement, I don't endorse, as in I don't endorse every idea in all of these books. Okay, I'm just giving you some resources that you, as parents, can read. And most of these high schooler can read as well. Um, some of these, yeah, all of these actually, I think they can read. They'll be a little challenging, but alhamdulillah. I mean, That's why we should read books that are challenging, right? So you have the Islamic ones. These are, like I said, dealing with Islam versus kind of modernity of the modern world. And then we have critiques of modernity. This book here, Strange New World: How Thinkers and Activists Redefined Identity and Sparked the Sexual Revolution. So this is a short book, and this, for instance, gender fluidity and all of these things, which I think, many Muslims, we immediately were getting our kids out of our schools, especially in California, right? Once they started teaching it in schools. This book will talk about the philosophical roots of some of these ideas that are around, like gender fluidity and what have you. And then the rise and triumph of the modern self. It's a lot longer than this first one, same author, and really the first one is kind of redaction of this larger one. And so these are, the first one for sure. I think everyone should read, parents. Once you read it, then read it with your child and just discuss with them. You know, what did you think about the book? How did you find this? Because it will really give you a picture into what's going on out there. Then we have this book here, Cynical Theories: How Activist Scholarship Made Everything About Race, Gender, and Identity, and Why This Harms Everybody. So this book really, as a kind of typology or a selection of the types of theories that are out there that you will find if you study in academia, right? If you're in the humanities, especially. Um, this gives you a nice, like, what is gender theory, what is queer theory, what are all these various things. It gives you easy, simple definitions in relation to them, and then they have their own kind of conclusion and what they believe the solution is. I don't agree with it, but the rest of the book, where they just kind of give you, here's the various theories out there. It's a good resource to have. Then you have classic here, Alan Bloom, The Closing of the American Mind. This talks about modern education, especially in academia, and how it's been affected and really degraded, and taken all type of moral refinement and these things which were main aspects of traditional education are just completely taken out. This can be read even, I think, by high schoolers. Lester McIntyre, After Virtue: A Study in Moral Theory. He basically is looking at the different types of moral theories that are out there. He eventually kind of sides with the Aristotelian ethic. Our ethics are similar to the Aristotelian. We actually took Aristotle and did a lot with him in the Islamic tradition. And there's obviously a lot more that we have. But virtue ethics, I call it virtue ethics. Our ethical system, Islamic ethical system, would belong to what is called virtue ethics. And then we have books on the Socratic method. So I can't recommend this book enough, The Habit of Thought from Socratic Seminars, Socratic Practice. So the little poem example that I gave, um, he has in the book, Michael Strong, he has other examples, how to even do Socratic method with mathematics, right? And so you can, like, believe me, it's a lot of fun. And then this book is also a great resource, Ward Farnsworth, The Socratic Method: A Practitioner's Handbook. He just gives you a bunch of different techniques. So where I put combining and separating, he'll talk about all of those and how to employ them. And then we have Mortimer J. Adler's book, How to Speak, How to Listen. You may know him from How to Read a Book. This is another great book that he wrote. And especially the listening portions of the book, How to Listen, I think are superb. Then you have Plato's dialogues. So, the ancient Greek philosopher, here the character is Socrates. There's no better way to learn the Socratic method than from Socrates himself, though it's Plato writing about Socrates. So it was actually a genre of literature in ancient Athens. Everyone would kind of write a Socratic dialogue. Because Socrates was, he's a barefoot guy walking around the streets asking people why they believed what they believed and if they knew what virtue was. And you have all of these dialogues with these wealthy Athenian aristocrats, and they're just made a fool of by Socrates. And it's a lot of fun. High schoolers actually really love reading them. So these are resources. also want to, I should have mentioned it earlier, but before we go to the Q&A, we have four courses this summer that we'll share with you the link to our website and also the registration for them. But basically, we have starting the 19th, so this is, in a week or so, we have an introduction to philosophy. It's 5 weeks, and we cover all the, like the philosophy of mathematics, philosophy of science, what have you. We cover a brief historical lecture, and then give the students primary texts, and then we discuss those texts with each other using the Socratic method. And if you look at the link, it'll give you the courses, and we have syllabi for those if you'd really like to take a look. And then we also have, starting in a week, a seminar on actually Homer's Iliad, which is an epic poem. It's really the foundation of the Western, literary tradition. And there's a lot of really amazing conversations to be had in relation to that text. And, it's kind of a staple. So, and then after 5 weeks of those two courses, we'll then have an intro to rhetoric, which is writing and speech. And then we'll continue with Homer's Odyssey, actually, as a kind of continuation with the Iliad. And then we have courses during the fall in English grammar, logic, and then a seminar, which basically is pure Socratic method using texts from the Islamic world and the Western world. And we'll make some more announcements about those in the coming months, inshallah. But I wanted to leave room if there's any questions that anyone has. We'll share if you signed up. Anyone who registered will share the PowerPoint with you, as well as a recording of the um, of the uh, of the talk. But if are there any questions? Alhamdulillah, we just made an hour. Well, yeah, the registration, let's see, we will send out the kind of packet for that by next month. But really, our registration is, I mean, you can register as early as now. But for each of our courses, forgot to mention, each of our courses has a cap of a limit of 8 students. We don't like to go above that because we want to give every student, a chance to converse and discuss. And the quality of the class really, I think, it's much better when there's 5 to 8 students than if you have 10 or 12. Some people could just kind of sit there and listen and not participate. But yeah, so we keep it at 8. But if you're interested, feel free to email us at, let me put that, the Edit Academy at gmail.com. Mhm. Um, Out of curiosity, why do you think these kind of programs are not popular? You mean just this type of course, like as opposed to doing, SAT prep or something? Um, I mean, right, we cater to yeah, philosophy. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, here's the thing. Everyone, you're all parents. You want to get your kid into a good college and so they can get a good career. And this is what we think of as parents, right? We want our kids to do the best. And so we want them to get all the requirements that they have. We want them, if we can, get them early into a community college, maybe take some courses so that other colleges will look at them and be like, oh yeah, mashallah, we really like that student. Um, so people, I think, just don't necessarily think about these other things that aren't on the quote unquote, required course list. I would argue, and actually there's some research that shows that students who study philosophy in whether it be elementary school, middle school, high school, they actually perform better on standardized tests. They write better essays. I can actually share if you join the if you're in the WhatsApp group for Edub Academy, I'll share some of those articles. But yes, that students actually who study philosophy actually do better in standardized testing and what have you. So I think maybe just a lot of parents don't know that. I mean, it's not made popular by, for instance, the American school system, right? They want to give you your, I don't know what you even call them anymore, but your basic courses so you can graduate. Uh, I mean, I went to an American high school. I didn't really get much out of it, right? And also, right. Anyway, I don't want to keep going on that. Yes, the WhatsApp group link is here. Let me send it. Are there any other questions? Now, one thing I forgot to do in the beginning was ask you all to just introduce yourselves. Um, so would anyone like to just say hi and tell us? I can turn off the recording too. You don't have to. We don't have to record it.